I don't even think about the fact that I'm a woman 95% of the time. It's not there in my brain that I'm having female thoughts or having female feelings, right? Until I'm bleeding, I'm not thinking about my womanhood. If we don't see a major shift in the next 5 years, we may not have a Marathi film industry. There will always be Marathi pop culture and entertainment and all that stuff. There's always going to be YouTube channels, rappers, people doing crazy stuff in Marathi for sure. Like, you can't kill a culture. But the cinema experience in theaters for Marathi may be a thing of the past. Time and money and talent. 3 things which people do not invest in Marathi. People don't give projects time, they do not give them money, and because of that, the talent leaves and they go work in other industries like Hindi. At BhaDiPa, we're always trying to inculcate this thinking that take ownership for the idea. If it fails, it's okay. We've done plenty of things which have failed. The things that have been successful all have one thing in common, and that's somebody took a risk and took ownership of that risk. Because we've come from a filmmaking background and not a business management background, I would say that, some things which would be extremely obvious to other people were not so obvious to us. I think some level of preparation for the world is absolutely the responsibility of our parents. And yeah, I think not everybody has the privilege of having parents who are self-aware or who even want the best for their kids. Parents sometimes don't want the best for their kids.
नमस्कार, माझं नाव आहे ॲडव्होकेट विराट विलास पवार आणि मी तुमचं स्वागत करतो बियॉन्ड बार अँड बेंच मध्ये. आज आपल्या बरोबर असं एक व्यक्तिमत्व आहे ज्यांनी दुसऱ्या कंट्रीमध्ये येऊन आपल्या कंट्रीमध्ये आपलं एक नाव बनवलं. आपण त्यांना जाणतो मिस मॅनर्स या नावाने. लेडीज अँड जेंटलमेन, प्लीज वेलकम पॉला मॅग्लेन. Paula, welcome to Beyond Bar and Bench. So I'm really excited to have you, BhaDiPa's office. It's really cool. I've been here a couple of times, and to talk to you is like something I've been waiting for quite some time since we started doing podcasts. So whenever I talk to my female friends, I start telling them that you must be knowing Paula, right? So they're like, yeah, Miss Manners, the one from BhaDiPa, yeah, we know her. So I tell them, like, there's a lot you can learn from them, and there's something that you can take some motivation from her and do something, because I feel like it's really easy for us guys to go out and do a lot of things, but when it comes to women, it's something that it gets difficult. So we're trying to change that as well, and my way to start with is to give this masterclass to my friends. So to begin with, there are a lot of restrictions for women in terms of business, and maybe some of them are shy or not given much opportunity. So in an industry, not just entertainment, otherwise as well, in an industry where women are not given much opportunity or not able to do because of some reasons, what is an advice that you would give to women?
Well, first of all, thank you, Virat Vilas Pawar, for having me on the podcast. I think that, I'm really honored that you tell your female friends about me. However, I do feel like there's one element which is probably an unrealistic role model, which is the very fact that I am not Indian. And the Indian women's experience is extremely different from my experience. I've been born and raised in Vancouver, Canada. My parents are from the UK. I've been brought up in a world where gender equality is an acceptable ideal, not just something that's being forced on people who are preferring a patriarchal, house or whatever. So coming to India, I would say so much of what I've accomplished is not despite being a woman, but rather been aided by my white privilege. Fully putting it out there. So I feel like it's not really so much that I can give advice to Indian women, but rather I could say from my experience, even from whatever I've been through, yes, being a woman is something that has an impact on you every day, but there's pros and cons. Right? So some of the pros could be, in one way, you're being raised in an environment where you are encouraged to learn how to do things. You're encouraged to learn how to take care of yourself, how to cook, how to clean, how to pay attention to the needs of other people, how to make sure and read the room, gauge people's vibes, because that's relevant not just to, being a good housewife or whatever, but also to your safety as a woman. So you become extremely aware about the world around you, far more than men do. And that's where, say, men suffer, because they are kind of thrown out into the world of responsibility after basically being babied by their mothers and fathers, and they don't know how to deal with so much. So that's a different, downside that men face. The downside for women of all of this is, you're conditioned to think about others' needs above your own. You're conditioned to mistrust on a first basis rather than trust. And all of these things can have their downstream effects, but more than anything else, I would say it's not about every day being a woman having an impact on you, because yes, there are safety concerns, there are, biases in the workplace, and all of that everybody knows about very well, but what people don't talk about enough is the conditioning that you're raised with in the household as a woman. Even before you go out into society and work, there's so much which you've been told is how you are and how you're supposed to behave, which is different from a man. And I think my biggest advice is, there's no way you can undo it, but the more you become aware of it, the more you can start to see how you can take advantage of the good things, and also develop some sympathy and empathy, perhaps also for men who struggle with the opposite problems. So I think it's really important to take that into account. And then, definitely, I'm in no position to give advice to Indian women, for sure.
So yeah, see, because it's really sweet of you that you spoke about men as well. When I asked you about women.
Of course, I'm a woman. I'm supposed to think about other people.
That's really nice. Really appreciate that. So it's like we are, as men, we have been told to be strong, be tough, and we have been conditioned that way since the age of 18. We have been told to be someone who's going to handle the house in a couple of years. So we have been told not to घाबरायचं नाही, रडायचं नाही, and we have also been told to stay strong. So at that time, I think unfortunately women are not told that you have to also be strong and all. They're just expected to be strong. So that's what I've understood. They are expected to do all the work, but they have not been told to do that. So in that situation, when it comes in, when you talk about confidence and being like a rock in a situation might help is, what I've seen you do, and that's what I really appreciate.
I think a lot of credit for that goes to my mother and my father also, in very different ways. But I think my father has always been spiritually very supportive, in terms of making you feel like at the end of the day, what really matters. It's all an illusion, all of this. It's what you make of it. How you react is the only thing you can control. These kinds of things my father really guided me with, but my mother, because my parents got divorced when I was quite young, and my mom took care of us financially, kept us in the house and all of that stuff. My mother has set an incredible example for me in terms of just being an independent person. When it comes to working from a young age, I think from the age of 12 I was babysitting, and then from 15 years old, where I was legally out to work in companies, then I started working at a fast food restaurant, then I worked at a boat rental place, then I worked as a lifeguard, swimming teacher for many years. All through my education, I paid for my own fees and everything. That is because my mother really understood that, because she was not told to do that when she was my age. She was encouraged to maybe go to secretary school and then marry a rich man. She wanted to be an artist, but she was told, don't be an artist, just marry a rich man, then you can be an artist. Instead, she married an artist who was my father. Neither of them got rich. And then, when they got divorced, my mom put herself through nursing school and took care of both my sister and I working full-time as a nurse, like in a single income household. And that for me, learning not to ever be, financially or emotionally even dependent on anyone. That is a huge factor in my upbringing, which has made me the way I am. I can't say it's something that I've read in a book or would even advise anyone to even think about it, because, like I said, I have my own set of problems which come from it. but yeah, definitely, I think some level of preparation for the world is absolutely the responsibility of our parents. And yeah, I think not everybody has the privilege of having parents who are self-aware, or who even want the best for their kids. Parents sometimes don't want the best for their kids.
Perhaps you don't understand, like, this could be good for him or her. Like, that could be a case as well.
No, and there are narcissistic parents in the world. There are abusive parents in the world. There are, patriarchs who don't want their girls to go to school, or don't even want girls.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
There's plenty of barriers to having equality, which are not even in the workplace, that we need to sort out as a society.
Okay.
Yeah.
Intense.
It is intense. Hey, you brought it up, not me.
Yeah, I was not hoping it would go that intense, but yeah.
I mean, if I'm going to talk about it, I'm going to talk about it in a way that I find important.
Yeah,
I've
absolutely.
done too many, and I know you were talking about this when you sent me the questions in advance. Like, I have done enough, Navratri and Women's Day interviews and podcasts that I'm quite tired of the tokenism. And, if people want to ask me about women's rights and gender equality and being a female boss and all of that stuff, I would just want to say, like, you know what? I don't even think about the fact that I'm a woman 95% of the time. It's not there in my brain that I'm having female thoughts or having female feelings, right? Until I'm bleeding, I'm not thinking about my womanhood. So when someone comes in with a question like, what does it mean to be a woman and all that, there's so much. It's like underpinning everything about who I am, but it's also not possible to just give a nice soundbite answer. Because for me, it's so important.
I wasn't expecting this angle, but something really different. Okay.
I mean, I could talk about it for days, but I don't think people want to hear it.
Yeah. No, it's nice. It got me thinking. There's this point when I was like, you were talking, and I was like, okay, wait, this is something different. I haven't thought about something like this. I haven't heard something like this. So it's something really nice.
That's great. I'm happy to.
Yeah. Moving on. Right? Yeah. We all have heard a lot about BhaDiPa, so I don't want to get into questions like what is the meaning of BhaDiPa or how did BhaDiPa start in a previous podcast. Yes.
You can search it up on ChatGPT.
Previous podcast with Sarah Given, he told me how BhaDiPa came into birth. All right. So I want to move on to the core part that I feel about BhaDiPa, that I really like about BhaDiPa, is that you stuck to content creation, but you diversified. You stepped into different fields: travel, food, doing live shows. So what is the idea? Usually people do a lot of things with the business and they're not able to scale anywhere else, or they just focus on one thing and they cannot grow. So what is the balance? How to go about it?
So, we're still working it out. When it comes to growing and diversifying under BhaDiPa, the way that we've done it has been that the idea behind BhaDiPa was fundamentally that we want to tell stories, not a particular type of story. That we want it to be a platform for Marathi voices, but not any particular kinds of voices, but we want to sort of just bring to light so many things that the focus for us is actually on the Marathi pop culture space. Then here's the stories that we want to tell, or here's how I want people to perceive me as an entrepreneur, or filmmaker, or whatever. Honestly, I never imagined I would be in the position that I am in now. And if you would have told me 10 years ago that I'll be here, I probably wouldn't have believed you. Just simply because I never saw myself as a business person. I've always seen myself as a filmmaker, as a storyteller. And why is because say for me, and the reason probably why BhaDiPa is partly the way it is and why our business plan came out the way it is because when I was in high school, I was told, you have to decide what you want to do for the rest of your life and plan your studies accordingly and go into the correct stream, as you guys would say. But I also had the privilege of having a personal life planning class in my high school, which had like sex education and dietitians who would come and tell you how to eat healthy and like how to build your resume and do volunteer work. So I had that guidance too. And in that class, I was told that, on average, the regular adult will change careers at least 5 times in their life.
Okay.
And when I heard that, I was like, oh, wow. So what I really need is a toolkit that I can take out through the rest of my life. Because I don't want to have to keep going back to school. I'm good at school. That doesn't mean I like school. So I didn't want to keep going back to re-educate myself for every career. So I thought, if I like learning and I like learning new things, I like the world, I like to travel, I like food, I love so many things, what is one thing I can learn that I can use to keep exploring? And filmmaking, initially documentaries, was how I thought I would be entering the space. And YouTube and everything was there from that age, but I really only kind of latched onto video and filmmaking from the age of 16, 17. And at that point I started saying, look, okay, like maybe I can do something with this. And then I decided to go to film school, and I did a double major in geography and filmmaking. And that film school experience got me into the filmmaking, like storytelling interest side of things, rather than just thinking about like, I want to be like a skilled film person. Okay. I want to like tell some stories that I find exciting. So then when I go into the BhaDiPa side of the business, and this is the second part of my long answer to your simple question, but it's not a simple answer. How do we scale a BhaDiPa? It's very difficult to do it. We've struggled. All 9 years, 10 years almost of BhaDiPa has been an experiment of trial and error, trying to figure things out. We were the first company of our kind in the market of Marathi language, and even other companies in Hindi and other places who have a similar business model, they're also not quite the same. Like a TVF doesn't do live events, or an OML doesn't do YouTube channels, those kind of things. They like manage talent and they'll do events. So we didn't really have any example of how to make it work, but I always looked at a college humor, which is now a really amazing story. They've turned into a channel called Dropout TV. Yeah. So they're very cool. I like them. I really look up to Sam Reich. But for a BhaDiPa to do it, what we've learned is that there's only so much bandwidth when you're building a company like this. Sading and I have really learned the hard way, you need to start letting go of the control and not micromanaging everything. We have micromanaged a lot over the years. But what's happened is that the more we micromanage, the more we are demanded in every situation. And then the more we are doing that, the less we can actually focus on building the big picture stuff, and we're getting bogged down with the small things. And when we found, like when Sarang met Amay Kadam, who is now the host and the head of BhaDiPa, that was when we like had a light bulb go off, and we're like, this is what we need. We need the right people who can just take it and run with it. We've got it to this point, and we've figured out a model that works, but we really just need like intelligent, creative, nice people who we can trust to now make it their own. And I think Amay has just been so inspiring with how he's taken BhaDiPa. We're looking now, how do we continue to do that with other areas, whether it be live events, whether it be Vishay Khol, BhaDiPa even, because Sarang is going to make a film, I'm going to do more business stuff, we're going to do music. All of these things require us to kind of let go a little bit while making sure people have an idea of what the full picture is. So that's what we're trying now. This is the new experiment, the new phase is letting go of the control and just trusting in a few carefully chosen people.
So basically teamwork is, what you're talking about.
Delegation.
Yeah. The right word is delegation.
If I can put my 10-15 minute answer into one word, it's delegation.
Right.
Yeah. But, because we've come from a filmmaking background and not a business management background, I would say that, some things which would be extremely obvious to other people were not so obvious to us.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, you mentioned about, working with your team. You also mentioned about Sarang. So, it's something that I wanted to ask. So, working with your partner, okay, is it really nice, or it's like a big drama that happens? Because you're with that person actually, I think, 24/7. So how does it turn out like? Because, a couple of my, colleagues have told that never marry someone from the same industry, okay, or, it's better to have a partner from a different industry, or, never marry someone at your workspace. So how does this work? Like, I'm really excited because I see your stories and everything, and it's really nice. It's very cute. So I want to know, like, does it create any differences, or how do you solve, if there are any? It's really motivating. What?
So, I love it, first of all. I love living and working with Sarang as a partner. I think what is the most great part is that we get to spend so much time together. And when we end up having to split our time because there's too much going on and we can't be attached at the hip all the time anymore, we feel sad about it. It's like, but then it's nice to also hear at the end of the day, like, oh wow, that went well. That's so nice to hear. I have no idea what's going on in your life. But so those days are happening more and more now as we're growing. But so I would say that Sarang and I can do it just because of who we are in our relationship. I would not necessarily assume it should be the same for everybody, or that it's something that people should aspire to, because it's so personal. I think that Sarang and I are able to do it probably because when it comes to the personal front, both of us are super career driven, that if we didn't have the work stuff going on, it would still be about that.
Oh.
We would still be thinking about how do we help each other in our careers and support each other, and that being the goal. Even as a relationship, I think it's just been, especially the last few years, it's been a lot of work stuff. And Sarang and I are now also in a phase where we're starting to sort of look outside of work and thinking, okay, well, maybe we should take up a dance class. Should we do something which is not work and not, just, chilling on the weekend. So yeah, that's one struggle, is that, when it comes to personal life, there is limited space for other things because just so much energy is going into the company and what we're trying to do. But we're happy with it because that's the priority and the passion for both of us. If we were not on the same page, I'm sure there would be a lot of other problems. But what we do have is like a little trick, which, if we come home from work and we find that we're not able to shut up or stop talking about work stuff, when we have like a signal where we take off that person's invisible work hat and hang it up on the wall. Yeah.
So I've been talking about, work again. Let's get back to work, because you just said work should stop somewhere, and going back to work now, about Marathi content or Marathi films. मी एक गोष्ट बघितलेली आहे काही वर्षांमध्ये, कोरियन ड्रामा हा खूप फेमस झालाय. ओके, राईट फ्रॉम आय थिंक गर्ल्स इन स्कूल, ठीक है, till I don't know, everybody of all ages, they've been drooling over Korean guys, okay, and that's only because of the Korean films that have come out. And I've also seen a lot of fashion coming in because of Korean films, be it those Korean pants or something like that. So Korea could make it to the global market, right? Of course, it's all dubbed in English and Hindi, all right? So what is going on with Marathi industry? So why can't we reach that level? What is something that should change or should be done?
2-3 things need to happen for Marathi to have any kind of impact. Korea has done an amazing job primarily because they've actively put in a lot of investment and government policies to push Korean culture globally. And that's gone towards building, massive entertainment companies, music companies, production companies, encouraging brands to make content on like a policy business level as a nation. And they've put a lot of effort towards that as having what they call cultural soft power globally. And I think there's a few challenges that stand in the way of Marathi reaching there. I do think Marathi has that potential. I don't necessarily see the steps being taken as an industry or on a policy-wise space for so many factors. Number one, it's a state, not a nation. So there is always going to be a limit, so much of the taxes that come out of Maharashtra get, distributed across the country. So it's not like you can focus all of that back into one state. So that's one, structural thing which prevents Maharashtrians from exploring their culture and taking it on a global stage. The next is investment. I think, the Korean space had heavy investment, private equity, and all of that stuff. But because, Mumbai is a capital for so many startups and investments and all of that stuff, it also kind of gets co-opted by Hindi or other like national level types of ventures because it is a bigger market. But that doesn't, everywhere you go nowadays, people are talking about vernacular and regional being the hot new growing thing, which is true, but people are still not investing in it in any meaningful way or in any organized way. If you even try to find out what is the population of Maharashtra, you cannot find recent data. Data is from 2012.
Yeah.
So without even knowing what's the size of the population, how can you expect people to invest? Because you don't know how big the market is. Yeah. So that's a major issue. And then third, I think that the film industry is kind of getting in the way of Marathi pop culture generally, because I feel for the most part, the Marathi film industry decision makers, the people who hold power, are not thinking about youth. They're not thinking about people under the age of 30 and what do they want to watch, and trying to encourage younger voices to make stuff in a new voice and a new style that young people will like, global Marathi youth. That's primarily because a lot of the people in these decision-making positions are older, and they have found their success when they were younger, and they're still holding on to it. They're not making space. That is a big issue, and I also feel like there is a lot of business-wise practices which are not sustainable. There are problems with black money and laundering and, things where people are not really caring about how much money films make in theaters, and then that's the only number you have. Hold on, let me roll back for a second. One of the reasons why I believe so strongly in Marathi culture and how it has potential is because I think, Marathi language has a lot of opportunities, whether through literature, stand-up, theater, music, all of that stuff. And you've got your art forms, you've got so many cultural elements, traditional elements, religious elements that are so unique to Maharashtra. There's so much opportunity there that is completely untapped. I did not know that Maharashtra was a state until I was in it. As a Canadian, I really just thought that India was like a bunch of Punjabis everywhere, just because of how prevalent Punjabi culture is in Canada. Yeah. But I also just didn't really, no one ever told me what India was. Like, I was just seeing it like, oh, these are Indians, and so all Indians must be like this, and Indian food must be like this. No one's actively promoting Marathi culture or like Malayali culture or like Bengali culture outside of India. It all just becomes India. And then that just depends where you're being sort of raised. So when I came and discovered Maharashtra, I was like, oh, Marathi people don't promote themselves very much internationally. Like, you don't see Marathi restaurants, you don't see Marathi shows or music being promoted to other people. And I think that that's something that's changing. Definitely been changing a lot in the last 10 years. But when you take that and then you take, say, what we've experienced at BhaDiPa, where for the last 9 years we've grown a, digital community audience, made a lot of content, worked with a lot of brands. These are brands who know that Marathi audiences have money to buy stuff, right? Otherwise, they wouldn't give us money.
Right.
And then you talk to Marathi producers and they're like, oh, Marathi people don't have money. Or you go to an OTT platform and they say Marathi people don't spend money, so they're not going to subscribe. Why do they think that? Mostly people sitting in these offices say, the last couple of years, there has been a recession in the general film and media and entertainment industry. There has been a recession. It's gone down. It's reported. There's papers about it. We were all hit hard by a massive slowdown. Hindi, Marathi, everybody. But Marathi particularly was hit hard because while Hindi and Marathi films were kind of like, well, there's like one hit here, then there's a bunch of flops, and then there's another one hit, and then there's a bunch of flops. We were looking into the South where there's like hit after hit after hit. And so people in the big offices, steel and glass buildings are looking and saying, where should we invest our money? You can see all this noise is going around South Indian language films. So clearly the audiences there have money that they want to spend on this language of entertainment. Let's invest our money there. And of course Bollywood, because it's Mumbai. But then if you take a look at the Marathi box office, it's been stagnant. I don't think Marathi box office numbers have crossed 200 crores as an industry for the last decade.
Right.
So when you see that Marathi box office is not doing well, that's the first language on the chopping block. But it's not the audience that's the problem. It's what's being given to the audience that's the problem.
Right.
You cannot blame the customer.
Right.
Right?
I was going to come to the same
That's like
point.
business 101. You don't blame the customer. Either you're trying to sell them something that they don't want or they don't need. That's why they're not buying it. And that's why when I said earlier that Marathi youth are not being considered, that's like 60-70% of the population. They're the people who have time and money to go and watch Marathi films. But when I go to college campuses, people in these colleges, they haven't seen a Marathi film in theaters for decades, at least a few years.
Yeah.
And I say, like, what's the last Marathi film you saw? And they say Chava.
Okay,
so,
now, yeah.
So it is a Marathi story, but it's technically a Bollywood film, production. So it doesn't.
Maybe Sairat, some would say Sairat. I don't know, it's been a long time ago.
That's 2018.
Yeah.
It's 2025.
Yeah.
And that was one film.
But do you think, very honestly and very bluntly asking, is it because of the content that, comes out? Because I personally was a little turned off because of the Marathi films, is because they had a set thing going on, sad endings, the same jokes, same loud laughs and everything. So is that something that should change? Because, I think people are bored of it.
Yes.
Or maybe make it extremely large like the way South films did. They still have that kind of action where somebody kicks a car and flies, right? So what is it like? It's because of the sad or not so interesting content?
No, it's people not even thinking about, does the audience want to watch this or not? There's nothing wrong with sad content. There's nothing wrong with people in flying cars, There's nothing wrong with any of it. But is this story something that people are interested in? Is this a character that people can relate to? Is this film worth 500 rupees, for a ticket? Is the experience in the cinema going to be worth it, or should I just wait for 5 weeks and have it come on Netflix? These are questions that the audiences are asking themselves, and it's like, am I going to get my bang for my buck? Is it worth me stepping out of my house to go and watch this film that looks like it could highly likely be very disappointing? Am I going to walk out of this film depressed about the state of Marathi entertainment? Maybe. So, people don't want to walk out of their house. They want to be inspired. They want to feel like, wow, well, F1, What a noise that made. Why? Because of the cinematic. No one's talking about the story of F1.
Correct, absolutely.
You know, and what does it take to give people that kind of cinematic experience? Time and money and talent. 3 things which people do not invest in Marathi. People don't give projects time, they do not give them money, and because of that, the talent leaves and they go work in other industries like Hindi.
Right. So I think I'm just hoping that, whatever you said, people try to follow it, because the questions that you asked.
Who am I?
Come on.
I'm just some white chick from Canada.
No.
But this is just from my perspective, and it's something that really bothers me, and I've written about it on LinkedIn, and it's something that Saring and I and Anusha, we care deeply about, and it's not something that we can solve by ourselves. It's something that we try to talk about as much as possible, because I really do think that if we don't see a major shift in the next 5 years, we may not have a Marathi film industry.
That bad?
I think it's going to change. I think it has to. I think it's inevitable.
It has to, yeah.
It is. But when I say film industry, I mean theatrical. There will always be Marathi pop culture and entertainment and all that stuff. There's always going to be YouTube channels, rappers, people doing crazy stuff in Marathi for sure. Like, you can't kill a culture. But the cinema experience in theaters for Marathi may be a thing of the past if the industry doesn't figure out that you actually need to care about your market before just, here's the poster, here's the stars I have, and here's all the, money that we're going to make from tax breaks or money laundering. That's how people look at it. And, you can't. You have to think about the market. People just don't think about it.
So I think Marvel Studios did a really great job with last couple of years after Endgame. They did complete fan servicing. Like, they just gave fans what they wanted to see. They just showed exactly what was there in the comics. So I think that also worked. Like, Endgame seemed like end of Marvel, but after that it still is doing pretty well. It's because of the audience and what they want. So I feel like the right person should listen to this podcast and listen to what you're saying and should act on it, because I don't want Marathi film industry to die in next 5 years. But I would really, I want it to flourish. Like, unfortunately, while I spoke to a couple of people for our superhero film, they were not keen on doing it in Marathi. Okay, because for the same reasons that you said. Now, also because the audience also has a very, different POV for Marathi. Marathi audience itself have a different POV, like, Marathi madhe kai, like, that's what they do because of the content that they've got in a couple of years, I guess. So I'm just hoping that somebody listens to this podcast, somebody takes your advice, into consideration, starts going forward. But the questions that you said, like, is it worth my time? Am I taking something from this movie or not? Are the questions that I had, but you just refined them so properly. So, I think it's a very good...
I've thought about it a lot.
It seems like that you've broken your head a lot on it. And these are the questions I have, like, but they're in a form of paragraph. You just put it out in pointers. So I think somebody somewhere out there might be thinking about the things that we're talking about, but it must be in paragraph and not in pointers. And what you said, give the points that can make it clear for them, and I just hope that it goes well. Right. So now that we're talking about Marathi, okay, as someone who's from Canada, right, and you must be very well about the whole culture where people are like not finding it cool to talk in Marathi. Okay, so what is your opinion on it, and how do you see this topic as?
So I feel like I see India the way that people would see Europe. It's so many states, each one has its own culture, its own language, its own industries, its own business, and everything is so distinct. I think that each state deserves its own respect and independence to a degree for these things, I do think that in a country like India, people should learn multiple languages. They do learn multiple languages just to get by. Just to function, you need to know 3 languages. That's just like Europe. People know at least 3 languages. You go to Canada, US, people know 2 languages tops. So but that's because of like a homogeny that you get in the culture over there from colonialism and all of that stuff. But in India, when it comes to Marathi, I think it's a really cool language, and I think that each part of Maharashtra has its own dialects and slangs and fun sayings and words. And I think that that diversity of Marathi needs to be encouraged. I think that there's a few things from external and internal factors which makes it a contentious topic to discuss. Externally, yes, you have your political sides of the story, which I won't get into. But there is always going to be a pressure because of, say, a Bollywood being in Maharashtra, being a financial capital, Mumbai being a cosmopolitan city with so many different speakers from across the country. Because it's a center for industry, it's natural that you're going to have a whole bunch of different people in Mumbai. And then even in Nagpur has so much Hindi being spoken because it's a political capital. So when you have these places, it's natural, you're going to get a mixed culture always. But when you talk about the state and the language, I think that it's absolutely important that people support and encourage people to speak Marathi. I started learning Marathi seriously when we decided to start a business. And I knew that, first of all, if we're going to make a business based off of Marathi language, I need to know what the language is.
Of course.
It's like, forget about the fact that I'm living here, and that's like a basic level of respect. If you come to Canada, I would expect you to speak in English or French, not Marathi. If I come to Maharashtra, you should expect me to speak in Marathi. Now, I think that's absolutely a normal and acceptable thing to have. You should have, people who speak Marathi everywhere in Maharashtra. Of course, you're going to have people who don't know how to speak it, and then we should all be encouraging and helping them learn. I think that that's really important. And this is then where you go into the internal side of it. I think that, there's a lot of people in Maharashtra who are Maharashtrians, who speak Marathi, have learned Marathi, but are scared to speak in Marathi because they don't want to be corrected. They don't want to get a word wrong. The same way that Marathi people are scared to speak to me in English because they get the wrong vocabulary and grammar. Similarly, there's Maharashtrians who are scared to speak Marathi to Marathi people because they don't want to be corrected and told that their Marathi is not cool or subpar or not proper. And I think even when we started BhaDiPa, we did get a lot of flack when, say, in an interview, someone is using some English or Hindi words mixed in with the Marathi, and there'd be people in the comments saying, oh, how can you use so much English? And it's like, chill. Let people express themselves. If you're not understanding, use subtitles. It's okay. And I think that language and culture are inseparable. And Marathi culture, for it to thrive, needs the Marathi language also to thrive. And both of them, so that they thrive, they also have to be ever evolving, ever changing. The moment you get stuck in a form or a pure version of something, you go from culture to tradition. And you don't want to make it something traditional, because that has a very clear boundary and box, whereas culture is ever evolving, ever growing, it's lively, there's people who come in, people who go out, it spreads, it changes. And I think that people need to be more accepting of the evolution of Marathi. That it, we used to have Modi Lipi script. Now we have Devanagari. So much of Marathi has influences from Farsi, from, like so many different languages that we don't even understand. But I think there's plenty of room for people to just kind of use more Marathi by relaxing the opinions and the tension around Marathi. I think that it needs to be protected, but it also needs to be encouraged.
Right.
It's like children. If you have a child, you want to protect it and make sure it's safe. And so you have certain responsibilities toward that child. Make sure they're fed, make sure they have a roof over their head, there's no people picking them up and kidnapping them. But you also don't want to lock them in a room forever.
Right.
It's not a jail. You need to give them room to make mistakes, room to grow, room to learn, room to expand. And I think that culture and Marathi language needs to be seen the same way.
Right.
I also feel like I'm just putting in a disclaimer. I told you that I'm more comfortable doing this interview in English because माझा मराठी कच्चा आहे. व्याकरण कच्चा आहे. It's very difficult for me to put complex thoughts like this into Marathi. That's why I needed to do it in English.
No problem, yeah.
I have spent a lot of time discussing these things with Sarang, and so these are not, purely my opinions and thoughts, but these are things that both of us have had so many conversations about. That's also a thing that, going back to your earlier question of how do we live and work together, a lot of conversations help us, get to these places where I think we really help each other think more philosophically than just practically about every day, like on surface level. We both challenge each other to go deeper.
Right. As artists living together, creating something. That's kind of sweet, nice.
Cute.
So, now talking about art, right? Artist art. So how does there's something that I've seen, that artists don't create art because it's not giving them, a good amount of money. But then they switch to creating something that is not their style but getting them good money. So how does an artist, have this war of art versus finance? So, doing something that is that sells well and that is true to them as well.
I think it's like how do you subscribe to the rules of society? As an individual, you're part of society because there's certain benefits that come with it. You get to have security, you get to have roads, you get to have police and legal systems and all of that. That comes as part and parcel of being a part of a society. And if you don't want that, you go live in the bush somewhere and figure it out on your own. Go for it. No one's saying you can't. You want to go live in Himalayas, you want to go to the bush in Canada, live with the grizzly bears, go for it. But then don't expect someone to come and rescue you when you fall off a cliff, right? I feel like it's the same with art and commerce. I think that I have a lot of respect and admiration for artists who really just say, I don't care about money, I'm going to go do what I want, even if it, makes me homeless or whatever. I really think that that is admirable and heroic. Is it something I want for myself? No. Is it something I was prepared for when I signed up to go to film school? Yes. When I went to film school, I was fully prepared to just be a vlogger or documentaries about whatever I find interesting and just be poor forever. But then I think as I started evolving and growing up a little bit, I started realizing that if you want people to pay you money for your art, you are no longer the only person involved, and you have to think about who's paying you money. They're your audience, they're your customer. And if you want it to be a beneficial transaction and for that to continue and have repeat customers and have repeat people watching your movies or coming to buy your paintings or whatever it is that you want to do, you need to give them value for their money. And people love art. People love to consume entertainment. People love it. People want it. You're adding value to their lives. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with having a transaction, but I think that a lot of people get confused about this relationship when they start thinking about funding, when they're thinking about producers or companies paying for them to make the art so the company can sell it to the audience. That's where things get muddy and people start to feel like, oh, you've sold out because you signed a record label, deal instead of doing it independently. Well, you know what? There's a lot of things in society that have sold out. The internet has been sold out, for one thing. There is no, I think apps have ruined the internet. Because with the apps have come the algorithms, and with the algorithms comes the silos, and now you're just, if you want to access the internet, you do it through an app, not through a website. Who has a website anymore? BhaDiPa has a website just as a token website, but I don't think anybody uses it. And I think that when it comes to artists selling their services to a company, who that company is going to be then selling that product to an audience, things can go wrong because as things grow, you get more people involved, you start having departments like marketing and PR and production finance and legal, and as all of these departments get involved, it starts to feel less and less like you're an artist and you're selling to an audience, so much as you're like an artist and you're selling to this corporate entity that is not a real person. And that's where the disconnect happens. And that's where I think people get uncomfortable. Because suddenly, as a storyteller, you're trying to pitch your film and it's not getting greenlit until the marketing team has said okay. And the marketing team is, say, in our case, they're working for an OTT platform, and that OTT platform is pan-India, and the marketing team sits out of Mumbai, but not a single one of them is Maharashtrian. So they want you to have a name that they understand as a Hindi name in your Marathi show so that it can get greenlit for production. And this is where things start to fall apart. So that's where things can go wrong. And as an artist, it's really important that you, to some degree, have a very good understanding of who are you making your art for. Because if you don't know that, if you don't know your market, like this goes back to the film industry conversation also, if you don't know who your art is for, you will not be able to navigate the complexities of this corporate, capitalist society that we're all part of. If you can't figure out the market, then you might as well just shut up or go be in the bush, like that's kind of how it goes. And otherwise, there are places like in Canada, so much of the film industry is sponsored by the government. So we have multiple government agencies, they have funds, you can apply for the funding to make your film. But at the end of the day, whether you get the funding is going to depend on XYZ factors. How culturally relevant it is to Canadians, how much, diversity does it have in the casting, how much, French is in there. Or, there's going to be a set of rules which allows you to apply for that funding in the first place. So then that's kind of the same as having the conditions of an audience or a company. And at the end of the day, you're taking taxpayers' money to make art. So it only makes sense that the government is going to ask you to represent the taxpayers.
Correct.
But does the government understand marketing? Does the government understand distribution?
The art itself.
And it's not its job to. Let the government focus on education and law and police and whatever. That's what it's for. Let it encourage the art and entertainment world, but it should not be controlled by it.
Right.
Yeah.
So, because you're talking about artists creating art, there's one question that, a lot of people have, and Indian parents, they're like, Acha, what do you do? I'm an artist, but what do you do for living? Even though they're an artist. So do artists need to have like a backup plan as well, or like a side hustle going on? Or there are two ways: you go completely all in, like you said, or there's like you know have a backup plan, have a degree maybe, and think about it, something like that?
Yeah, well, I mean, I got a degree for my mom's sake. I was going to go into film, and I told my mom straight out of high school, my 12th standard, I said, I'm going to go into film, and I know that nobody in film cares about my CV, so do I need to get a bachelor's degree? And she was like, yes. What if you fail? And I was like, oh, thanks, Mom. And she was like, no, but like, if something goes wrong, you will have a bachelor's degree, and you can go back to school and get a master's, become a teacher, whatever it is. But you'll have a bachelor's degree. No one can take that away from you. So I agreed, and I said, okay, Mom, last thing I'm going to do for you, I'll get a bachelor's degree. And I'm so glad I did. Not because the bachelor's degree has any impact on my life. Zero impact on my life. But the things I learned at university broadened my mind, helped me think differently. They gave me an academic approach to life, to studies, having the freedom to pick classes that you're interested in. And this is, I think, something that I feel very lucky of having the Canadian education as well, and the Canadian education system, because it encouraged me to think differently and realize how little I actually know. When you come out of 12th, you feel like you know everything about the world. When you go into university, you realize you know nothing about the world. And there's so much knowledge out there that you're not even ever going to be able to scratch the surface of it. So that was an extremely valuable lesson. And I wouldn't have got that without it. I would have probably been very much in a bubble of the film industry or something. I don't know where I would be if I hadn't gone to university. So I think that there is something that people should do, and this is where, again, we go back to the conversation about art and commerce and society. Artists should understand their audience. You should know your audience, and I think that that's something that a lot of artists don't know. I think a lot of filmmakers don't know their audience. They're like, I want to tell this story, but who's going to watch it? Who is going to be impacted by it? Who's going to connect with it? Is something that you should learn, and that is something that is not intuitive. It is something that you can study. It's something that you can learn about. You can learn about marketing. You can learn about all kinds of things. But I do think artists, if you are going to go out there and you're going to say, I don't want to have a backup plan, I think you have a responsibility to at least commit to constant growth and learning. Because at least the university gives you that for another 4 years and teaches you how to learn. I think that school makes you learn, and university teaches you how to learn. So however you do it, there's got to be, like that one good teacher you've had is the one who's taught you actually how to make yourself understand the topic, whether it be math or history or anything like that. So I feel like everybody needs to have that one experience. Open the mind and realize that it's possible to do different things. It's possible to be interested in different things. And this idea of being like a pure artist or anything, I think it's all false. I think that there is no absolutes, and things should be constantly changing. So I don't think, and I think it's arrogant to think that we can do things on our own, that we have an idea that's the best and other people need to listen to us. I have a million ideas that I think are amazing. Why have they not happened yet? Well, there could be a million number of reasons, but the number one reason is me. I am the reason why they haven't happened yet.
Why so?
Because I haven't pushed for them to happen.
Okay.
It's still in my brain. I haven't found out how to communicate it properly to people. I haven't figured out how to get the financing together. I haven't figured out who my audience is, who's going to watch it. My very first movie that I ever wrote, I wrote the script almost as an exercise because I knew after a point that no one's going to watch this. It was like a story. It was called The Benefits of Living in Bombay. And it was about a young white girl who comes to work at an NGO and then gets a sugar daddy in Mumbai. She finds like a really rich Indian guy and she has like a fling. And I was like, Indians aren't going to watch this. Westerners aren't going to watch this. Nobody wants to watch this. I'm just writing it because I think it's a fun story. And I finished writing it and I said, great, that's done. I wrote my first script. Moving on. I think it's important that we should be able to let go of ideas, and we should be able to constantly learn and grow and be open to learn and take advice from other people who know more than us.
So we spoke about ideas that are there in your head but they never came out, right? Or even if they did, there are a lot of million possibilities that could have happened, or things that stop. So how does the thinking room of BhaDiPa work? Everybody comes in and puts an idea, or it's very chill, or what is it like?
Well, at the end of the day, while we've always tried to encourage jamming and group brainstorming sessions, I think that an idea always needs a leader. It always needs a champion, or an evangelist, somebody who's going to take responsibility for it. And so, we've gone through phases where, say Sarang has an idea, he throws it out to the team and says, hey, if you don't know what to do this week, maybe you should do something around this. And they listen to him and think, okay, Sarang says we should do this, so let's do it. But then Sarang's involvement ends there, These guys will brainstorm, they'll jam on it, and they'll come out of it and they'll have a completely different idea, which was not at all what he was saying. And when these things have happened, mostly they have failed. Because Sarang is given an idea maybe out of a very particular vision. And because, there are people whose jobs it is to also have a vision and plan and execute and do these things, they have in the past, say, they didn't have the confidence to take ownership of the idea themselves and change it to make it something that they believe in, and then they get feedback from 10 different people, and then the final product becomes muddled, and it's nobody's idea. It's suddenly an idea that they've tried to make everybody in the office happy with, and it's turned out to be nobody's idea. And that's where brainstorming and all of that stuff can really fail. And it's not a nice thing to say, but this has been our experience. So for us, I found that now we really push that do what you want, but do it the way you want to, and do it and take responsibility for it if it's going to fail. So we can have multiple people come in and give feedback, multiple people can hear our ideas, but when you get feedback, you need to be very clear about what feedback you agree with, what is helpful and what is not helpful, and accept the fact that somebody's given you feedback thinking it's going to help make your idea better, but they actually just don't understand what you're trying to do. Maybe that's going to tell you something else that you should change or edit and adjust. So I think listening to feedback from two perspectives. One is, what is the literal meaning of feedback? And second is, why did this feedback come like this? Did I communicate my idea badly? Did I not read it out properly? There could be other factors for the feedback to come in. Maybe I have not explained something properly, and hence the whole point got missed. At BhaDiPa, we're always trying to inculcate this thinking that take ownership for the idea. If it fails, it's okay. We've done plenty of things which have failed. The things that have been successful all have one thing in common, and that's somebody took a risk and took ownership of that risk and saw it through to the end. And that is, I think, ultimately what it needs. Especially when you go into film and you have so many people involved in executing a project, ideally that person should be the director, but it can also be the writer, it can also be the producer. And that person sees it through from beginning to end and takes responsibility for the final product and how well it performs or doesn't perform. So that's kind of how we look at it.
Okay. You talk about teamwork and, taking ownership of the art, the content that we create. Do you think luck plays a very important role, or it's just pure hard work? What is it like?
The luck doesn't happen without the hard work. But yes, luck is 100% part of it. I think Part of luck is being open to unexpected opportunities. So you're not lucky if you don't notice, what the opportunity is. There's going to be like a million examples from my life where I can say, I find it very overwhelming sometimes when someone will say, like, the way you started and said, like, I tell all my friends that, you should look at Paula as a role model. I don't see myself that way. But because of luck and circumstance and hard work, I found myself in this position, which was not at all the position I was trying to get myself into. I said, I wanted to be a filmmaker, I wanted to go make documentaries and all. And here I am. I figured out how to do business somehow. And I always said I was not a numbers person. I'm still not a numbers person. But somehow I'm running a business.
Yeah, is it so? I was going to ask that.
I'm like numbers dyslexic almost. If it's not in a sheet, I can't.
Easy.
I can't do math in my head.
Okay.
Yeah.
But then still, it's something I feel we've played a really big role in growing BhaDiPa, handling the business part of it and otherwise too. So I really personally don't want to believe the fact that you're not good with numbers game, but if you say so, you say so. That's what I would want to believe. You told like really amazing way the thinking room of BhaDiPa works, right? So a lot of people want to work with BhaDiPa. When you put some post out that we're looking for XYZ, there are like thousands of comments over there and people want to join your team. What are the 5 things that you look for in the candidate?
First thing is we try to eliminate the undesirable traits. And I hate to say it, but this is going to go out to all of you people who are watching and who want to work with BhaDiPa. Do not sign up for BhaDiPa if you want to act. If you want to be an actor, audition. Do not try and take a job in social media or in editing or in anything else. It's a very frustrating thing that we deal with, but there's so many people who come to BhaDiPa, apply for jobs, internships, whatever. At the end of the day, what they are trying to push is to have themselves come in front of the camera. And we have no problem with our employees coming in front of the camera. In fact, we encourage it. But that shouldn't be the reason why you're joining. Your main responsibility is the job you're signing up for. And we tell our team, if you want to contribute to ideas, yes, our HR wants to contribute to HR, our creative ideas. They want to contribute to films, but at the end of the day, if you're not doing your job, then you shouldn't get the privilege of participating in the creative stuff, because there's actual people who've been hired for that, and that's their lookout. They're good at that. That's why we hired them. If you have a different job, you've been hired because you're good at that job. A lot of people kind of come in with ulterior motives, and so that's the first thing. We try to eliminate that. We try and figure out who's coming in with ulterior motives. Then, and we'll see through it pretty quickly.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, how do you, what are the parameters, but then if you...
No, I'm not going to tell you that because I don't want people to use it against us. I don't want to let go of the secrets. But yes, so there's that. Secondly, we don't care about your score in school. I don't care what college you went to. When I'm looking at CVs, I'm always looking at work experience. How long you've stayed in a job matters a lot. If you're changing jobs every year, I will often see that as a red flag. Either that you're not able to last long enough in any particular job, that you get fried or you get bored after a year. And it's okay to get bored. But then I want to see that those jobs are changing. You're trying different jobs. That's why it keeps on changing. It shouldn't be that you've done the same job for 5 different companies and never lasted more than a year. That's a red flag. And then I also look for basic cultural fit. I want to know, this is a chaotic company. It's a lot of creative people doing a lot of stuff, lots of channels. Things can get very overwhelming for people, so I want to make sure that people have basic skills, like can you show up on time for a meeting? Are you disciplined enough to get your work done? Do you know how to work smart, not work hard? These are things I don't care if you work 6 hours instead of 8 hours, that doesn't matter, so long as you've done your work and you're not hampering other people from doing their work by staying up until 3 o'clock in the morning and giving your stuff. so that, the team, they were supposed to get it the earlier day, you finally finished it, it's 2 a.m. and now it's too late because people should be sleeping, so not respecting other people's time is another issue. Finally, the cultural fit is with content. So what we do, we generally ask people, especially for the content team, what are some of your favorite creators? What kind of films do you like to watch? What kind of shows do you like to watch? Because we want to make sure that people who are working at BhaDiPa are not just in the bubble of, Bollywood and daily soaps. We want to make sure that people are exposing themselves to different kinds of entertainment from different cultures, because I think that's really important, especially in today's day and age. You want to be grounded in your own culture and your own language, but you should be able to also be inspired by things which are not for you. You should be able to look at the craft of a show or a story and say, like, hey, that's inspiring. How can I do this in my own way, in my culture, in my language? So I think that people who have a variety of different rich types of content that they consume, I say content because it could be like YouTubers, it could be, Scorsese, whatever, it could be Cannes films which you never see in theaters, from your movie subscription or something. I don't really care so long as you're actively out there looking at new and different stuff.
So now you know what to prepare for, and please don't sign up if you have any ulterior motives. So, when I came in, there was a cat, right?
Yeah.
And you also have a cat, Mogambo?
Yeah.
How does it feel to have a cat at home, being a pet parent and being out there for so long? How do you manage being, pet parent and, managing your work? Because they need a lot of attention and love, I assume.
Yeah. So we've had Mogambo now for like 12 years, and he's getting old. He's slowing down a little bit, so he's just becoming a very cuddly boy. But when we started working in the office, for the first 6 years that we were doing, that Sarang and I were living and working together, we didn't have an office for BhaDiPa. We were freelancing, so we were working from home most of the time, and that was very easy. Happy to manage. Cats are great, dogs are great, whatever it is. But when it comes to having the office hours, we realized after some time, we thought he was getting old because he was slowing down, he wasn't as playful as he used to be, and then we realized that actually he was just lonely when we were in the office 5-6 days a week. And so then we started actively looking for another cat to be a companion for him. So that took a couple tries. On the second try, we got it right. We got a second cat, Sheila. And she became our pet in 2020, just after the first lockdown. And so she has added so many years to Mogambo's life because she just constantly wants to play. And so when he wants to play, she's ready for it. They're not best friends. They don't cuddle or anything like that. But they play a lot, and that has really helped. And Mogambo's mood changed drastically after we got another cat. So I think it's important to remember that they are social animals. If they're very attached to you when you come home, that's great. But then I think people need to also think about the mental health of their pets a little bit, especially when they're stuck in the house all day.
If you're not able to give them attention, it's better to not have them?
I do think so. Right. Yes, I do think so. I feel really guilty sometimes when I come home from work and I just don't have the energy to play. But Sarang and I take turns, I'll go through a phase where I'm always doing the litter and the food and the grooming and things like that, and then Sarang's doing all of the playing, and then after a few months it'll just swap. And then I'm doing the playing and Sarang's doing all the litter and the food and the grooming. We keep taking turns. But ultimately I'm the one who ends up having to book the vet appointments.
So thank you so much, Paula. It was great talking to you. Like I said, the first word that came out of my mouth after my first question, your first answer was intense. It's really intense, and it was really thought-provoking. I really loved how the conversations went. It was not the usual, giving a question and answering it the way we are expecting. It's like very deep and intense conversation.
I don't actually just call people Bharat over again.
So that's something a lot of people say. When I posted a picture with you for the first time when we met for some work, people were saying, I like the way she says Bharat. I like the way she says Bharat. So yeah. So, just from a thank you note from our side, a token of love. You know Virat Studios, of course. Here is a small caricature from our side for
Aw.
Paula.
Thank you.
Yes.
That's so cute. A little comic book me.
Yes.
How sweet. Thank you so much. I feel like I look like a Disney princess.
Yeah, so we try to have that flavor. We have made a lot of artwork for you for your birthdays and all.
Yeah,
but
yeah, it's always very nice
yeah, but
getting
I was like, okay, I don't want to print the same old and give it to you. So this is something new.
Thank you. Thank you. My updated
Yes,
caricature.
yeah.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
That's awesome.
सो जर तुम्हाला हा एपिसोड आवडला असेल तर नक्कीच आम्हाला सबस्क्राईब करा आणि फॉलो करा. थँक्यू सो मच फॉर वॉचिंग बियॉन्ड द बार अँड बेंच विथ ॲडव्होकेट विराट पवार अँड अदर्स. थँक्यू सो मच.
Yes, and adding in there, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to talk about these things. Like I said, most people know me for Bharat, they know me for BhaDiPa, they don't know me for much else.
Yeah.
And I always am really grateful when I'm given an opportunity to sort of speak my true thoughts
Yeah.
and not just reels.
It's a little intense for everybody. I feel for I didn't really come prepared for such answers, and I'm really glad to have such answers coming in from you. It's going to be very
A lot
difficult.
of thought goes behind these stupid reels.
It's going to be very hard for us to cut the reels because whatever you said is like really nice, and I cannot fit everything in 90 seconds or 3 minutes
Yeah,
maybe.
sorry about that. I'm not very eloquent.
Yes.
I take a
Thank
long
you so
time to
much,
get to the
Paula.
point.
Thank